Welcome back. We are concluding our series on the Big Five, or five-factor analysis on personality types. And depending on what acronym you use, CANOE or OCEAN, we're using OCEAN. Neuroticism is the last dynamic. I really don't like the term neuroticism. It can seem stigmatic, and certainly it's a negative quality. I prefer negativity or nervousness. Neuroticism even has a mental health allusion to it, and that's not at all what we mean to imply. All of us in different circumstances can be a little neurotic, and neurotic or neuroticism is most simply defined as demonstrating frequent emotional reactivity. It's the lack of self-control. And none of us has perfect self-control all the time, and depending on our context, we might be reactive emotionally many times. Again, depends on the people that we're with, depends on our environment, because the Big Five is about fitting the person to the environment, and that's not always a good fit. Things can change, training can happen, the person can adapt some of their ways of interacting with that environment. There are many things can change, but the fit is not always, or I should probably say never, perfect. Now, if you remember a summary of each of the elements of the Big Five: openness, which concerns our internal receptivity; conscientiousness, which concerns our external action; extroversion, which concerns our internal energy; agreeableness, which concerns our external relationships; and now neuroticism, as I've said, which concerns our inner and external self-control in stressful environments. And you probably remember that each domain links a person to the environment and addresses motivation. Now, with neuroticism, the motivation is probably just to gain some sense of control, or is expressing that they know they've lost some sense of control or something that is precious to them, and they're expressing hurt or anger or fear or anxiety because it's important to them. What they have lost or what's been violated or what is at risk is important to them. So neuroticism is the most predictive dynamic for unpredictability. When you're assessing yourself or others on a family, or in a family, on a baseball team, in a work team, or anything else, if somebody is highly reactive on a regular basis, then they're going to be unpredictable in the future, because that comes from something within them. So its polar disposition or opposite is being emotionally self-controlled. Neuroticism will manifest in a spectrum of emotional reactivity, broadly and deeply. For example, self-consciousness, anxiety, impulsivity, fear, depression, hostility, etc. Now, as I mentioned, neuroticism is obviously a negative quality, but it's not all negative. There are some benefits to someone who is highly neurotic or who expresses high neuroticism. For example, others can more easily recognize the person's perceptions and emotions. If you have someone who is new to your team, or somebody who has a lot of personal hurt in their life, or maybe you have a family member and they are frequently angry, or they frequently complain, or they frequently tear up, or they frequently withdraw out of fear or anxiety, that might seem like a negative quality, and certainly it's not ideal to cohesion in the group. However, it can help you to see where that person is in their beliefs and in their emotions, what they think about the world and the environment that they're in. It could be a reflection of the group. It could be that person is not valued, or that they believe that they're not valued. It could be that the environment is unusually difficult for that person's present skill set, and they need more training, they need more information, they need more resources, they need a sense of teamwork from others in the group. It will tell you that there is a need there, but there'll have to be some collaboration with you and the other person to discern what those needs are. Obviously, there are some downsides to neuroticism. A highly neurotic person will find it difficult to find inner peace or a satisfying environment. Other members of the group may see them as unpredictable and therefore unreliable, and outward reactions will often hinder them and others from deeper inward concerns. In other words, when a person is highly neurotic and they're expressive outwardly about their fears, their angers, their sadness, the focus can easily become on that outward expression instead of what is primarily the focus of the family or the work team or the social group. It takes people off task because they are reacting to the person's reaction. Now, it's still appropriate to include neuroticism as one of the big five instead of something that has a more positive sound to it. We couldn't say, for example, that one of the big five would be self-control, because you can't see self-control. If I have a composure about myself, you don't know if I'm truly being self-controlled or if the environment is just something that's easy for me or even enjoyable to me. Neuroticism, on the other hand, can be seen and measured, which is why it's included as part of the big five. This time our recommendation is the opposite. Measure the need for your self-control by your fit to your immediate environment. Remember, the big five is all about fitting the environment and the person. What do they need to fit? And we can't ask ourselves, what do we need? What level of neuroticism do we need? The neuroticism shows that we're being reactive, but we need self-control. Question is, how much self-control? We may need to open up and tell some people that we're hurting, that we're scared, that we feel inadequate to a task in order to get more training, in order to get more resources, in order to get more support. And when I say support, not just emotional support, but help from other members in the family or the work group. So total self-control is not always appropriate. I'd say it's rarely appropriate. We need to let some needs show through, otherwise we'll never have those needs met by others in the group. Does that make sense? Hope so. So that wraps up our series on the big five or five-factor analysis. Tune in next time. We will start a completely different series, and I hope to see you then.